Whoa, okay. We're letting people in. What's up?
Hey, what's up, man? How are you?
Good, man. Let me send a quick email to everyone up with this link to make sure everyone is getting this. There's someone, there's some people waiting here, but for some reason they're not. Fathom's not letting them in. But
Yeah, I was I was actually on with my cell phone for like 3 or 4 minutes, and it just kept saying the same thing, like the host has joined, but waiting on them to let you in.
okay,
My computer was reloading.
okay. How are you, man?
I'm
How are
doing
things?
great, buddy. How are you?
Great. Thanks for being in the three-way there with these other two people that just wanted to know about you. Because
Yeah,
we
no
talk
worries,
about
man.
you. We talk about you in a few content, and people want to meet the Jesse Bush. So
Fair enough. Yeah, man, I have no problem with it.
all right. How about we go over a few fun things. Maybe we can do a fun uh we can do a fun role playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's this on here right now? Rick?
I'm not sure. Maybe Rick could be our role player.
Right on. I was gonna say hi to him if it was Rick. I don't know Rick.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Some people are coming in. The goal is for people that are here, they can see some displayed skill from objections and getting some objection handling going on with your REI sales process
Sure.
with your sellers and everything. So what type of seller is it the one that you actually have the most difficulty with, Jesse?
Um, you know, I would say that that can really be a case by case basis. It's not like one um type of person I would say has ever been more difficult or less difficult for me. I think the the one that I would say I probably encounter and can struggle with sometimes just because of my nature and who I am and how I can be are the indecisive seller. The person that is maybe shopping, with five, six, seven different wholesale companies looking to see who they can get the best deal from.
Yeah. So so basically like people that don't have any assertiveness about making a decision, basically.
Yeah, it's
Right.
not even really assertiveness, but like for example, in the last, I would say month, I've gone on appointments that I would say probably 3 to 4 appointments that I've gone on, and you get there and it's literally a cattle call of wholesalers, a cattle call of wholesalers, investors, things like that,
In the
because
appointment?
yeah, at the appointment, because they book the appointment themselves. So they're booking the appointment. The automation is confirming with them, like, hey, we're confirming, this appointment, blah, 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 blah. Even if I reach out to them, a lot of times they won't say, there's multiple other people coming at this time. I had one a few weeks ago at 145 Massa Drive. I get there, and as I'm driving down the street, I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. Like I started texting all of my friends that are also investors because we all drive in our company cars or our trucks, stuff like that. And it's like you're pulling up and there's 6 or 7 different people there to see the house at the same time. And those can be a little bit difficult because one, you can't really isolate the seller for a
Mhm.
good one-on-one conversation. And two, when that type of thing happens, you know that the sale is going to probably take place on the follow-up, not right there in person.
Mm.
And then it's like, okay, how good can my follow-up game be? What can stand me apart from somebody else? And a lot of times when it's those types of situations, at least in my market, it's whoever offers the most money is usually who they're going to go with. So those types of sellers can certainly be difficult, I think.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, guys, everyone that is joining, it's my fault. I forgot to put the Zoom link in the calendar of school. I'm sorry. But hey, we're here. We're gonna talk about the different buyer personas or seller personas. So Jesse just talked about one that he sometimes does get trouble, and he knows that it's gonna be more of a too cold close, gonna be more of a follow-up, right? So Jesse, whenever you
Yeah.
have that challenge of like, okay, this person's not gonna close right now, how are you currently managing your follow-up?
So I try and do a few things that help me to stand out from, my competition in the local area. I'm not saying that these make a difference, but I'm doing face-to-face appointments. So it's a little bit different, obviously, if you were virtually doing it.
Mhm.
Although I've done it virtually on the same thing. The first is whenever I have a conversation with a seller, any lead that I get in, it's factored into my business's budget that one thing they're going to get from me is when I go to their property, especially if it's a face to face. If it's the wintertime, they get a coffee mug that's branded with my company name on it and my phone number. I get them from. I was getting them from Vistaprint for like $6.97 a mug, for like a nice heavy duty mug with my logo and phone number printed on it. And then in the summertime, they get like a tumbler, like a Yeti tumbler, and they always get a notepad and a pen. So it's a total cost for me of around $9. But I factor that into my cost of acquisition on a deal.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because I know, some of the other companies in my local area, like Akella and First or Integrity First with Brewer, First Choice Home Buyers, Legacy Cash Offer. Those guys aren't doing that. So I'm trying to
So they're
stand out a
sending a
little.
coffee mug.
No, they're not doing anything like that. You know what I mean? I am doing that. Yeah. And when I would do it virtually, I would do the same thing. The receptionist just every day, got a list of, these are the people that we're making offers to. Run down to the post office on your lunch break, take an extra 15 minutes and overnight these folks a little care package from us.
I know someone that actually sends a custom message to Pizza Hut as
Yeah.
a so
Yeah.
you literally can customize your pizza to whatever toppings, right? And whatever message you want,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
So
And again, for me, it's I always look at it like, I go back to that philosophy of selling isn't what you do to someone, it's what you do for someone.
yeah.
So I want their thought process when they're thinking about their interactions with me or my company in general, not just me, but the company in general. I want their natural thought process to go to a positive place where, they hold the company in high regard. These are the kind people that sent us that mug. And I can't tell you how many times I've run into people that I didn't buy their house and they jokingly say, like, I just ran into somebody 2 weeks ago in a local grocery store where I live. It's called Giant. I'm walking through Giant and I see one of my easy exit mugs in the woman's shopping cart. And I stopped and I was like, hey, cool mug. She's like, oh, thank you. I was like, do you know where you got it? And she's like, some guy that came out and made a cash offer or she didn't say cash offer. She's like, some guy that wanted to buy my house, but I went with somebody else. I was like, oh, right on. And I handed her one of my cards. I was like, I'm the owner of the company. I was like, listen, if you ever have any other properties or you know somebody that's looking to sell one, please give me a call. So it's my way of just trying to stand out from the competition. So that's the first thing I do when I go on an appointment in general is they're getting a gift from me. The other reason is because of my direct sales background. I always look at it like when I give somebody a gift and they accept that gift from me, I've now earned the right to be a guest in their home and for them to listen to what I have to say. So it's kind of just ingrained into me after 22 years of like, this is what we do. So that's the first thing I do. The second thing is I do try and have a quick one-on-one conversation with them. And this is, again, we're talking like in a cattle call situation where there's multiple investors there at the same time. Even if it's just a quick 30-second, I want them to have a nice warm handshake from me. I want to give them one of my business cards directly. I want to tell them, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come out and see the place today. I really appreciate it. And, and I try and set an immediate time while I'm there face to face with them for that follow up call. I say, look, I can see from Esteban, it's pretty obvious from the amount of people here. You've got everybody and their brother looking at this place. I know all these guys, but I do want to let you know that I'm a very serious buyer, and man, this house kind of checks all the boxes for me. What time would you have available this afternoon for me to give you a call and just maybe find out a couple pieces of information if I didn't get them yet? And I'm always looking to do that, usually within 4 to 5 hours of the time that the appointment's going on. Even if it's just a one-on-one appointment, I usually try and set up that follow-up call. And I do that, although I'm there to try and get the deal from them, while I'm in the house and while I'm seeing the property. I do that in kind of my beginning part of my front talk on a one-on-one appointment. And the reason why is because I want to get them programmed to where they're used to doing a couple things. One is me asking questions and them giving me a response. Two, I want to get them used to saying like yes to certain things, shaking my hand on other things, like to get a commitment from them, soft commitment. And I'm doing all of that to kind of start to, it's like when you if you go to, what do they say, boil a frog. If you put a frog in boiling water, it jumps out right away. But if you put it in nice cold water and you slowly increase the temperature, the frog gets cooked. And it's the same thing. If I go in there and I'm just gung ho, sell, 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 buy, 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 type of thing, a seller can certainly be put off from that.
Yeah.
So I try and kind of slowly, starting off on, what I call the step one, which is like the ground floor. We're going to slowly go up that sales escalator together until we get to, here's the offer, here's what I can do. Let's sign on the dotted line today. You're here to sell the house. I'm here to buy the house. But I don't want to just rush in there hard charging like that. So I try and really kind of start it off with just, nice warm handshake, warm greeting. I always want them to kind of tell me about themselves. And this is if we're doing a one-on-one appointment. I'm looking for them to part of the front talk is really me asking questions about them. And I always look at it like I've warmed up enough with them when they start asking questions about me. So, it always is kind of the, wow, great place. How long have you been here? Where are you from? How long have you owned the house? What do you do for work? And I kind of put it in my own way. Obviously, what I do for a living, Esteban. How about yourself? What do you do for work? Are you retired? And I start to try and find out about them. I find out about, family, kids, grandkids, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, divorces, any of that type of stuff I'm trying to handle in the front talk. And even if it's a group appointment, I still try and, like I said, pull them to the side and kind of get a little bit of that information. And the reason why is because I watch other acquisitions people when they go through these properties, and some of them have they're really lacking in their training and in their just selling ability, period. So it's like when I see these guys, I am looking to differentiate myself from them. So I do kind of the opposite of what they do. A lot of those guys go in and it's like, hey, I'm just here to see the property. They realize there's 6 other people there that are going to be making cash offers. So they don't talk to the person a whole lot. Or, they just want to go through and kind of take pictures and act like they're just there to gather some information. Whereas I kind of go with the opposite approach. I want to make that personal one-on-one connection with the seller. I want them to know that I'm a serious buyer. And I want to see if I can try and isolate them from the group some. I've actually had multiple times of situations. There was a property last year where I got a lead from a Hessel lead. I show up and there was like 4 other companies there. And wow, I didn't even see the house. I literally, the wife was like, all right, guys, well, let's do a tour with everybody. And I watch them all walk off and the husband stays sitting in the kitchen. And I just pop my head and I say, hey, can I ask you a question? Who's the decision maker here? You or the wife? I said, because normally the decision maker goes for the tour also. He goes, oh, it's my decision. He said, this is her chance to be social for the day. And I literally said to him, do you care if we talk for a second? I said, look, a house is a house. I've seen them all. I bought them all. But can you and I chat for a second? We go out back. The guy smokes a pipe. He's like an old school guy in his 80s, literally sparks up a pipe, like a wooden pipe, and is standing there smoking it. And as these guys come out through the back door after like 7 minutes, he's literally shaking my hand and said, yeah, at 80K, we could do that. That's a deal. I shook his hand on the spot. I can tell you who the other people's names were that were sitting there. They literally walked out the door and they were like, "You son of a bitch! Like you just snaked everybody on this deal." Because again, I was looking for the business, not to just go on a house tour with a woman that he married a few years before that. So, I try and differentiate myself, try and have a good conversation with them for sure. See if we can build some rapport, and then at worst case scenario, I'm setting them up for a phone call a few hours later, and I'm trying to see if I can get the deal done right then and there. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about some of the behavior of some of the type of sellers that you would see. They call it the buyer behavior, buyer personas, right? I mean, there's a lot of different ones. And I want Jesse to just kind of chime in this in the short time that we'll have. But I have put together this presentation for my own internal team about buying behavior, which in this case is seller behavior, right? Because our buyers for our service are motivated sellers, are homeowners, right? So what are the most common ones? What are the most common type of sellers or buying behaviors that exist out there, and to how to ultimately sell them? Um, at the end of the day, understanding behavior is it means that psychology means helping. It means ultimately understanding another person perspective and how he behaved towards making the decision. Relationship selling is that what we need to understand about people's preferred buying behavior, and if we want to sell them into you're selling yourself, right? You're selling the method, you're selling the process, and you're also selling yourself to be the trustworthy about doing the transaction with you. So it is a fact that people buy differently, which is known as buyer types, or in this case, seller selling their house, right? Because they're buying into your service, right? And some people prefer to buy quickly, some people prefer to buy slowly, but some buyers make ultimately the decision more impulsive. They take some of them they take longer to avoid risk, or some of them they just totally don't trust you and you have not earned that trust at all, and so on. And some of them are rude, some of them are passive, some of them can be easily manipulated, some of them, and there's so different type of people that we need to understand what they are. So the challenge is that make this ultimately make selling actually an actual challenge, because we need to understand different type of personalities and behavior of people. So different understanding that there's different people is makes it easier at the end whenever you go through a sales process, and then ultimately that handling objections. So to sell to all these different type of buyer behaviors, we need to be able to adapt our selling behavior and make the process easy to each type of buyer. And you're only going to be able to achieve this by asking some qualifying, probing sales questions or Socratic questions, so that you can ultimately understand what type of buyers they are and how they want to be sold. And this applies to whether you sell face to face, just like how Jesse does a lot of phone selling, but then he closes on face to face, virtually, email, phone, whatever, social media. Right now, Jesse, you're doing a lot of uh, on the phone selling, right? On the phone closing, is that correct? You're doing a lot of on the phone closing, but you also do a lot of in-person closing, correct? Jesse, I think
Yeah,
you're
sorry, I was muted on my microphone. Yeah, I mostly do face to face, to be
yeah,
honest with you. I've done a lot of phone closing, but right now my main focus is usually on face to face appointments. Um, just in the market I'm in, how flooded and saturated it is with other investors, things like that. I know that a face to face interaction with me builds a lot more rapport. If I can't do a face to face, like in person appointment, I don't demand it, but I highly encourage them to get on a Zoom call with me.
right.
Usually it's on FaceTime if I know that they have an iPhone, because I want them to see my face so that they're not just hearing the voice inflection, but they're also seeing the facial reactions and, my own persona that goes with it.
Yeah. So 100%, I mean, like whenever you do face to face, you usually have like higher closing percentage. However, if you want to optimize towards like having a scalable, more efficient process, going virtually is always good, especially as you start growing, it gets more complicated or complex to actually do more face to face unless you have, all these multiple acquisitions going to different areas. You maybe have drivers, or maybe you have a way to fully go through from place to place. So your efficiency goes down. But if you guys are like ultimately doing a lean and mean business, then face to face is great. But what's the mission ultimately?
I will say this though, with face to face, I mean, if it's within like a 20-30 minute drive of my location, then I go for face to face. Otherwise, it's usually, we have a telephone call. We make sure that the numbers are in a line with each other. I kind of drop ideas as to where I would need to be money wise. If they agree to that, then I'll set up a face to face. And if it's more than an hour's drive, then usually I will handle it virtually. And then once I get the agreement of sale actually signed, then we'll have somebody go out and do an on-site inspection.
Yeah, yeah. So understand the mission of understand this type of people is one, some people can be super analytical. So ultimately people either they come from engineering background or they are just analytical, and people lack ultimately assertiveness and responsiveness ultimately are people that could be analytical. So when this type of buyer ultimately is distrust salespeople, don't be surprised by it, because they they ultimately lack that precision. They want to make sure that think think and analyze as minor detail as possible, which makes them delay any type of decision. So they like to analyze, compare things and things like that, and put a lot of things together. And a lot of those people actually need to be called out during the sales process, at the objection handling, right? You need to like make sure that these people are shifted through their analytical minds, which have created patterns that maybe are making them be in the same situation, in the situation that they're in right now, for example. And that's the situation, that's a pattern that you want them to get out. And so you're going to be able to help them. So people want to go in facts, people want to be a little bit more objective rather than subjective, and they want to avoid taking risks at all costs, and they like to go into like details a lot, right? So those people ultimately, yeah, you got to be able to handle them, but you got to be able to also call them out whenever you are required to call them out, right? How to deal with them? All right, so you can't push them into quick decisions because usually their brain is not made for that. They take action rather than words to demonstrate helpness. So if you ultimately be able to show them proof, uh, walk them through like a demonstration, or yeah, be able to even tell them like, hey, in your situation, I also helped Mary, and this is how we did it. Look at what Mary testimonial says, right? Actually put yourself in front of the FaceTime camera and actually show him that you're willing to do more than what other people are willing to do to help them, and go out of their way. Usually these people can often be very cooperative, but establish relationships take time with them. Discuss reasons, ask why questions as opposed to like how questions. So ultimately, these people, you want to be able to like open them up. Like whenever you're doing discovery questions, you got to be able to open them up about why they're doing what they're doing, right? And trying to go as deep as possible, even though these people are going to try to be aligned with analysis as much as possible, objectiveness as much as possible, and obviously be open and transparent with them. So have you had this type of buyers or sellers where they're like super analytical, Jesse, and how would you handle them?
Sure. An analytical buyer, in my opinion, is just somebody that's going to use a lot more reason and deeper thought than just, waving the shiny object in front of them. So with the analytical type of buyer, normally I try and kind of strategize it in three ways, or into three parts. The first is why I would be the best fit for them, why they should choose me over somebody else or another option. Because again, I'm not trying to just talk the entire time, but an analytical person wants to feel like they've gathered all the data, that they've, making an educated decision. The second part is the tie-in part for me. So the first part is kind of talking about the why I could be a good fit for them. The second part is the tie-in. Like you were saying, Esteban, that's one of those more, wow, you remind me so much of this person that I bought a house from a few months ago, the next town over, and kind of go through to make them feel as though they're very comfortable, or that there's similarities between themselves and another transaction that's been done recently. And then the third part with the analytical buyer is the probative questions. And that's the why questions or the how questions. I know we shouldn't be saying how on our end, but I'm looking at that more from the perspective of, let's say, for example, they say that they wouldn't take a penny less than $250,000 for the house. A great question on that is, wow, that's definitely a big number. Esteban, if you don't mind me asking, let's say I couldn't get to that $250,000. What's your next step? What would you do then? And whatever they say, then I can go to, oh, I'm curious as to why you say that. Do you mind me asking why? And I'll go through that with them multiple different times, because through that process, they're going to be telling me how to sell them, and they're going to be telling me, how I can make how I can put together a deal to make that work. A prime example of this is one of the students in the weekly conversion call training, Pill Sun. I don't know if you heard about this or not, Esteban, but she had a lead that she was talking about 2 weeks ago, and was saying that the woman was just being really indecisive. The woman would not commit to anything. She wouldn't even really give a number. And Pilson had multiple phone conversations with her over the phone. And in that conversion call training, I explained how, if that was me, I would have already tried to push to have a face-to-face video call with her. So she ended up sending the woman a text. The house is in Tennessee. Pilson lives in Los Angeles. She's never even been to Tennessee. And it was a Hessel lead. And she texted the woman and said, hey, I just wanted to see a couple, areas of the house. Would there be any way you could jump on a Zoom call with me tonight at like 7 o'clock, 4 o'clock Pilson's time, 7 o'clock PM? The woman texted back and said, sure. And she said, cool, I'll FaceTime you then. Fast forward to 7 o'clock, and she had like a 50-minute FaceTime call with her. The same woman that wouldn't commit to anything said she was just trying to find out more information. She wouldn't even give a price. Within an hour's FaceTime call, she'd given Pilson an entire tour of the property and agreed to a sub-2 deal with a $10,000 entry fee, taking over the 8 years that's left on her mortgage, or 29 years that's left on her mortgage, something like that. Super favorable terms for Pilson. So I just look at it like, it definitely, those questions, the probative questions, the why questions, they all can make a huge difference, especially with trying to get to the end result that we're looking for.
Dude, that's huge. I did not know that story. And there is three other type of buyers, but let's talk about the last buyer. Maybe we can leave it for, maybe we can finish this off, later if we're going here for too long. But there's the other type of buyer, this one right here, the amiable buyer, the complacent buyer, the buyer that is highly responsive, not super assertive, but they're friendly, they're good with social situations, they're gonna be, jump in a call with you, they're gonna prefer to be, they're gonna be friendly and, and so on. And amiable buyers lack assertiveness, so they will not make decisions easily. You'll need to help them make a decision, all right? And amiable buyers that lack assertiveness will agree to appointments, will agree to meetings, but they'll be, is it they're going to be wasting your time? Asking probing sales questions to avoid time wasters is important, but also making sure that you lead them towards making a proper decision, and then sometimes doing any type of mind shift whenever they're making the decision is very important. So they're usually nice people to be around, but it's difficult um, saying no, saying negotiations to it's kind of difficult for in the negotiation to make them commit to something, right? Or make them making it in some sort of decision, like going for it, right? So those people, need to be held more accountable about those things because they're just like complacent. So you gotta be obviously build a great connection with them, common ground. Gotta have social proof and personal assurance about what you're going to be able to do. If you gotta have an offer, you potentially need to build any type of guarantee or any type of situation where you make them even more confused, where they can grab out of that confusion and then just kind of exit out from the decision. So if there's a lot of options going on, for example, at the moment of giving an offer, then that would help, that would actually make them be like, no, there's a lot of things going on. And ultimately, it will be harder for them to make even a decision, right?
Yeah, and with amiable buyers, it's funny because like a lot of times the person that's the easiest to say yes is the hardest deal to keep together. And it's like we've all had that situation where it's like, how much do you want for the house? You've already looked it up kind of before you even call. You see it's a $300,000 house, and the person's like, well, it's in kind of rough shape. Honestly, if you give me 130 grand for it, it's yours. And it's like, done. You know what I mean? Like you're ready to just go with it. But oftentimes those can be the deals that are somewhat tricky to keep together. There's stuff that pops up on the title search. You have to do a change in terms for some reason. Closing gets pushed back. Whatever it might be, it's with amiable buyers. It's really important to build that rapport and that relationship with them, so that if adversity does arise throughout the course of the transaction, they don't get freaked out and try and ghost you on the deal.
That's right. And have you had someone where you had to like keep them accountable because like they've been going through the entire thing and then you knew, oh my God, this person is literally like going everything is so easy throughout the conversation at the moment of making a decision, like they just either want to ghost you or they just are scared, essentially,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I have one literally going on right now. It was a lead I got in about a month ago. James Brown on King Street in Lebanon. The guy was super easy to talk to on the phone, was pretty upfront and honest as to what's going on, why he was looking to sell the property, tells me all this stuff. And he starts off at a number that was honestly fair. He did not start off at a number that was like, this guy's nuts, anything like that. It was, it's probably about a $215,000 house, $220,000 ARV. And he started off at, 125 grand. Um, I said no, just to say no, because he was being kind of so pliable and was willing to just go with the flow and stuff. I knew that he had had another company come out and look at the property, and he turned them down at 95,000. He actually had a written offer from him at 95 grand. So I knew that he was being legit on that. So I came in at 100. We went back and forth a little bit, and we ended up settling on 108,000 bucks. So it was a real easy deal to do. But the problem is the guy, even from the time of the negotiation, he was counting his money. He was like, okay, so my mortgage balance is this. So I'm walking away with how much? What's my transfer tax going to be? How much money do I have to pay at closing? All those types of questions kind of came up, but as a real brief overview. I've had to speak to him several times from getting buyer access. I have a lockbox on it, but his kids live in there. So, when I was showing it to wholesale it to a couple people, I had to communicate with him several times. Again, he brought it up like, all right, so how much am I selling it to you for again? And all right, how much am I going to make on it? Well, now title search is done. The property closes next Thursday, and we ended up finding, so this guy was planning, he was really planning on, he was making $20,000 on the deal. Is what the guy thought he was going to walk away from the closing table with. I ended up assigning it for a $24,000 profit on my end. And it's going to close next Thursday. We get title search back yesterday and realize that there's $13,000 in judgments against him that are tied to the property. So I had to not only get him to sign his mortgage release information today, but I also had to go over the fact with him that there's $13,000 worth of judgments that he's going to pay. So that 20
This is-
grand, I just heard somebody talking, but that $20,000 that he thought he was walking away from, suddenly just got cut down to $7,000. And I had to break that news to him today. And his natural reaction was, oh man, I'm not selling the property if I'm only making $7,000, blah, 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 blah. And it was one of those things where I had to rely on the rapport that I've already built with him before. I had to make sure I gave him personal assurances on my end of like, look, we're going to fight to try and get those judgments down. They are with a collection agency. I need you to sign these papers that I'm allowed to speak to them on your behalf. And I had to try and let him know that at the end of the day, this is still the best route. We decided to sell this property, and I used the we because I like using the plurative, as in we're on this together, Jim. Me and you were fighting to get this deal done. And I went back to we made the decision, Jim, to sell the house in the first place because of mom and dad's health condition. Dad's dying of terminal cancer, and mom would get put into a home if you don't live there full time. I understand that you were expecting a certain amount of money to come your way, and now you feel like that kind of got pulled out from under you. But unfortunately, as we go through life, this is a guy that's in his late 50s. So I was speaking to him like an adult. I said, as we go through life, sometimes we hit hard patches, and maybe we're not proud of them. And maybe we regret the times or some of the bad decisions that we've made. But I've learned one thing in life, Jim, and that's that we're all accountable for our own actions, whether you believe in it or not. There's an ex-president being held in a trial right now because another group of citizens said that he needs to be held accountable for his actions. And I know me personally, Jim, I'm talking to you guys like I was speaking to him today. I said, I know me personally, Jim. I had a contractor one time, he charged up like $4,200 on one of my charge accounts. And it wasn't for a job that he was doing for me. He and I kind of left on bad terms, and I forgot that he was on the account. And as much as I didn't want to pay that, I had to be accountable for my actions. I was the one that chose to put him onto that account. I was the one that had to settle that debt. And it's kind of the same thing here. I understand that you don't want to have to deal with it, but it has to get dealt with. So whether it's me that's buying the property or Joe Schmo 15 years from now, that debt's going to have to get paid. So why not sign the paper with me? Let me do what I do tomorrow. I'm going to have one of my loss mitigation specialists call for me. They're going to try and negotiate a much lower rate and a much lower term for you. And we're going to see if we can maybe get that, $13,000 knocked down by 50, 60, 70%. I can't make any promises, but I can tell you, just like everything else that I've guaranteed you I would deliver on, I'm guaranteeing you that we're going to try our absolute best to get this down as much as we can so that you still walk away with as much money in your pocket as possible. And that was it. And when I said that, he was like, all right, cool. And he signed it, gave me authorization. And I said, but I do want you to know, worst case scenario, Jim, the 13 grand is going to be getting paid next week out of that 20. And he's like, man, blah, 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 blah. And I said, look, what I can do for you is I'll cover your side of the transfer tax, So, and when I said that, he shook my hand, kind of gave me like a bro hug, and was like, you don't have to do that, man. Thank you so much. I said, if you say it again, I'm not going to do it, but I'll do it right now. It's going to cost me $1,000. So I make $1,000 less, but it's keeping the deal together.
Yeah. That looks good. That sounds good, actually. So that's the amiable buyer, right? That's the amiable type of buyer persona. We got the other ones that are very impulsive, expressive, the ones that are trying to drive the conversation, they're highly assertive, you know, they kind of
Let's talk about the driver for a second,
let's
because
talk about that
this is something that comes up a lot, especially depending on what markets you're in. You know, there's definitely different parts of the country and different attitudes in those parts of the country. That's just calling a spade a spade. So you have to understand your not only your market, but also your clientele you're going to be speaking to. For example, I live in South Central Pennsylvania. I'm about an hour north of Washington, D.C., hour and a half north of Washington, D.C., and about 45 minutes north of Baltimore, and an hour and a half west of Philadelphia. So I live really close to where like the Battle of Gettysburg was and where this country was founded at in York. And, you know, where I am, it's a much more rural, laid back, kind of down home, good old boy type of mentality. A lot of pickup trucks, a lot of deer hunting, you know, a lot of Trump flags in the yard, and a lot of beer getting drank on the weekends. Although when I'm calling, for example, and I'm talking to sellers or to clients or, you know, people that I've coached, and they're in Manhattan, for example, and they're calling that local market, or, you know, right outside of Manhattan up towards Yonkers, stuff like that. They're much more fast paced, get to the point. What do you want? What's the deal type of thing. And it's important to understand the person that you're going to be speaking to and the market. And you have to be able to read that as you're starting the conversation, because, you know, even Esteban could tell you there's sometimes where he'll text me and say, hey, could you jump on a call? And I'm like, dude, I'm busy. Like, I'm busy. I've got, you know, this going on, that going on, this going on, and I just can't talk. And sometimes those are the mentalities of that driver type of person, where they're so used to everything being fast paced and quick that they don't want to sit there and feel like they're wasting their time or spending, you know, 30, 40 minutes or an hour on the phone with somebody for no reason. So, you know, I've heard RJ Bates say it before, and it's a great point, which was like, you have to know your seller, you know, and you have to be able to pick up on what type of personality they have pretty quick in the conversation. The way you do that is by, you know, jumping on the phone with people. The more you practice, the better you get at it. And you'll start to realize it, because when it's the driver type of person, they got to know a couple things. It's like you've got like a minute to let them know who you are, why you're calling, and that you're serious about buying the property. If you're calling Ethel in Hanover, Pennsylvania, she'll want to tell you about the red light that just got changed last month, you know, and she doesn't care if she's on the phone for 3 hours. But if you're calling, you know, Ethel, who lives just outside of the Bronx, and she's used to a very fast-paced lifestyle, she might, you know, have a lot going on, and not just want to sit there and waste her time. So with those type of driver personalities, you have to know when to be in charge, but you have to also let them know when to give up the reins, you know when to push and when to pull. Because when they are a tough person and they kind of have that tough mentality, they don't want to feel like they're wasting their time. So those types of conversations a lot of times can start off like a, hey, Esteban, my name is Jesse. I was calling about your property that you submitted for 125 Main Street in Yonkers. Yeah, awesome. Hey, listen, I'm super interested in that property. Do you have a quick, like 30 seconds, just to tell me a couple pieces of info about it? I know going into it, I'm going to be on the phone way longer than 30 seconds with Esteban, but I'm doing it quick and deliberate and intentional to try and set that hook to get him talking to me, to kind of break down that barrier. It's just like anybody that's ever called a business, or if you guys have had if you've had a business where people try and call you, you get solicited all day long. The value of a receptionist or, you know, a secretary comes from their ability to run interference and kind of weed out the bullshit from the people that actually need to be on the phone with you. And it's the same is true with a seller. You know, when you have a driver type personality, you need to be assertive and you need to be quick so that they know that you're serious. You can set a hook with like a, hey, do you have just a quick, like 15, 20 seconds, just to give me a couple pieces of info about the property? Sure. What do you want to know? Awesome. So I see here that it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom property, correct? Yeah. And it says on the tax card, it's 1,830 square feet. Yeah, it's about that. Okay. Now there's some piece of information that I don't see online. Do you know how old the roof is? You know, and as soon as I ask that, and it's like, and do you know how old the water heater is? Do you know how old the furnace is? Oh, cool. Hey, I mean, So you've owned this property for 15 years. Do you mind if I ask, why are you selling it now? And then I'll start to slow that conversation down. Then I'll start to pull it back and start to establish that rapport. Once I've had them on the phone for 2 minutes already, and they've told me about the bedroom count, the bathroom count, how old the roof is, how old the furnace is, how old the water heater is, what type of electric it has, then I'll start to build on having an actual strong relationship with the person and starting to open them up, and for me to be able to open up with them. But initially, with a driver personality, you need to be quick, direct, and to the point. And if you're not, and you try and go into every call like, hey, I'm going to be on the phone, this call is going to probably take 30 to 45 minutes. Are you okay with that? No, I'm not. Because I don't want to talk to you for 45 minutes now, and I don't want to talk to you for 45 minutes 3 weeks from now. So with a driver personality, you want to make sure that you're using, facts and logic about the area, about the home values, because they're usually a much more educated person as well. A driver personality has already gotten online. They've looked at Zillow and seen what the property value is. They might know neighbors that have sold the property, things like that. So before you can jump into the specifics of the deal, as far as why do they want to sell, why do they want to go the cash buyer route, all that type of stuff, you need to keep it quick, and efficiency is like the key with those type of people, because when they feel like you're not wasting their time, they're much more willing to open up and actually get to what's going on and why they want to sell the property. And look, the reality is that anybody out there, almost everybody in this world, when you think of selling a house, you think of calling a real estate agent. So there has to be a reason why they were willing to click on an ad, which could be complete spam. People are used to getting like spammed and scammed and everything else. And I'm not saying that any of Hessel's ads are, but there's a reason why they were willing to click on that ad. And it wasn't just because they want to sell the house. They know that they could call a realtor. You could throw a stone in a church and you're going to find 6 cousins and 3 brothers that are realtors. So there has to be a reason why they're clicking on that ad. And a lot of times with those driver type of personalities, it's because they want it quick, fast, and easy. They don't want, to have to go through the realtor and the process and everything. And they see an ad pop on their feed that says, we pay top dollar for any house, guaranteed, type of thing. And they're like, yeah, sure. Let's see how much I can get for it. Boom, click it. And then when I get on the phone with them, I want them to know that, hey, look, I'm a business person. This is a business. I'm going to be assertive with them. I'm going to be quick, fast, and to the point. And then once I can establish some of those things, then I can pull it back and slow down the conversation and get into the rapport building and building value from my point of view, as far as why this could be the best choice for them.
That's right. So these are the top 4 type of buyers. So we got the driver, we got the analytical, we got the amiable, complacent buyer, expressive buyer. I think we talked kind of a little bit of one example, and those that are very expressive, impulsive type of buyers and so on, that essentially they have a very short attention span and so on, and they just don't even look like they're paying attention to you, but they're just all over the place basically. And you got the driver buyers that ultimately are the type of buyers that you'll see in the East Coast, or you'll see
Northeast and Southeast, Northeast, Southeast, and South Central California are where you're
South
really going to
Central.
run into,
Right.
like, LA, from like San Diego through LA, and then you get up around like San Francisco, bigger cities. You know what I mean? They're just going to be usually a higher educated clientele that wants to, like, let's get to the point here. Do you want to buy the house? How much do you want to sell it? How much do you want to buy it for? That type of attitude.
That's right. And at the end of the day, when you understand this, first of all, you're gonna be able to adapt and negotiate with the type of person. And once you understand those type of people, now you're gonna be able to navigate your conversation and your sales process towards those type of people. And then once we know that, like, that you'll start developing certain skill sets towards certain type of objections, towards certain type of reactions towards what you say. And then, since at the end of the day sales is emotional, now you're going to be able to even get them to make a decision more towards based on their emotional type of part of the brain rather than any type of objective or any type of logical type of part of the brain that you don't want to be trapped on, right? At the end of the day, uh, there's different type of personalities, and some personalities are going to be able to handle more or better because you are that type of personality too, or you connect with those type of personality. But it's important to know how to mirror and know how to really level up to with people. But then throughout the conversation, you take over the conversation by gaining authority by asking the right questions, right? So at the beginning, you want to be able to level up with this type of people. As you continue through the conversation, you gain the authority to be able to take over the conversation by not talking too much, by asking better questions, right? So that's actually one of the few things that Jesse was talking about the other day, that he actually does a lot of FaceTiming. If you wanna like cultivate or have a better show up ratio, have a better follow up, have a better type of relationship, get on video with your, get on video with your sellers. Like send them a video, for instance, to tell them that you have recently had a really great conversation with them. Send them a voice note about how you guys are gonna meet up on an appointment because maybe the lead came in and you want to send them an iMessage, send them a voice note telling them that you are a real person. People are going to be able to read, see that video, listen to that video, listen to that voice note way better. And that ultimately increases more of the trust and would allow you to have people to show up more, to actually pay attention to more of that thing, right? So that's
I,
one.
I was gonna say with the video thing too, something I'm working on right now that I had before, but it was under another company name, but I don't know why I kind of got away from it. So I'm putting one together now. Is on all my deals, you know how, as you go through any type of real estate investing, there's some deals where you just really connect well with the sellers and they love you, you love them type of thing. I like actually having 3 or 4 like quick 15 to 30-second clips with the sellers. And it's like, hey, I'm here right now with, and it's literally just like a selfie video. Hey, I'm here right now with, my customer, or with Jamie. Jamie actually filled out one of our ads. We came out, looked at the property. We were able to give her a great cash offer, and we're here getting ready to head into the closing table. Jamie, how was the whole process? Can you just give us a quick 5 seconds? And it was great. You know what I mean? Jesse was the bomb. His team was perfect. What'd you like most about us? Oh, you guys had great communication. Everything was so smooth. And I like to compile 3 or 4 of those into a video that you can literally make on your phone or wherever if you want to, and then send that over to the people as well. Hey, here's what some of our, hey, here's what some of the people that have recently sold us homes have to say about us. Because again, when they feel like they can relate to the situation and they see, a younger family telling you how they sold their house to you, and then they see an older, widowed person saying how they sold their house to you, and they see another type of person saying how you had great communication and you were always on time and you did everything you said you were going to, and you can send that over to them. They might not watch the whole thing, they might not watch it at all, but at least it's kind of reinforcing that who you are and what you're doing, and that this is what you do. You buy houses from people left and right, because people like to feel like they're part of a bigger group. Everybody likes to feel like they belong. So when it's like an individualized situation, people can easily feel like, I don't want to be the only one selling this guy this house. How do I know it's legit? Whereas if they see 3 or 4 people that are all saying what a great, process it was and how great you or your company was, they're usually much more inclined to feel open to the idea of doing business with you in the first place.
That's right. All right. I know that we
So
had a,
guys,
what's up, man?
hey man, just got off a killer call.
Nice.
So we're doing objection. Is this you guys about to shut down?
Yeah, we're about to shut down.
Okay.
Tell us about it.
Um,
What happened?
Well, it's this lady I've been going back and forth. Do we have a Barry Smith on our team?
The what?
Is there a Barry Smith or Barry Smith that works with us? Or Barry? Yeah, I don't know. This lady talked to Barry Smith and he had my email address and everything. She's like, I sent you the pictures, but it's a house up in the mountains, like kind of towards Cashiers, up like Brevard County, North Carolina. And she owes about $140. It's hard to pull comps up there just because it's like half an acre. But the Airbnb is the shit out of it. It has deeded access to a private lake. So she never really heard of like the hybrid method because she pays $1,600 on her note. And then, kind of explained to her how we could give her, she would just carry a note for the second half. I mean, she's got houses everywhere. But so her biggest thing was like, oh, I filled this stuff out online. I didn't know, what all was gonna happen. I've got pages of stuff. And so basically she's just waiting for the best offer. She's gotten like a 385 cash offer. And I explained to her how wholesalers basically, she's a funny lady. Explained to her how people come up with that, price. And so I was like, we'd be able to offer more, if you held that note and carried the terms, how much would you need? Like, 10% down, because, she wants 425. It probably needs 25 grand worth of work into it, but I think it would be one of the most amazing Airbnbs because that area of North Carolina in the mountains is insane and off the hooks right now. So she's like, just write up an offer, how to do it. I don't understand this. And she goes, I'd love to go with you. So she has a house in Turks and Caicos, 5 houses in Atlanta. So she's not hurting for money. So would we do like the best, just send her like a letter of intent saying, with a, sub 2 with the owner with the seller carry back on that? Because she's like, Eli, because everybody's going to draw their, getting back to me tomorrow, which, they all say that. But, her biggest thing is she just didn't want to let it go. She goes, I know how this area is blowing up. I get calls from realtors every day wanting to manage my property. I just don't want to deal with it anymore because I want to be in Turks and Caicos. I'm like, okay.
Have you asked her about putting a
So I don't know
package
if that
deal?
was an objection.
Have you asked her about
Putting a what?
Did you try and see if you could put a package deal together? Look, it sounds like you want to be in
That's what I'm
Turks and
talking about.
Yeah, that's what I mean is like, so if it was me, my first reaction would be like, just based off what you're saying, my natural inclination would be, it sounds like your heart's already down in the islands. You don't want to be in the cold weather. You don't want to deal with the rain anymore or anything else. Just out of curiosity, if we were able to put together a deal for you where you could get paid every month, like you were still collecting that rent, but you didn't have to worry about dealing with any of the tenants, the properties, or any of the issues, would that be something that would interest you? And she's
Right.
probably, what do you mean? Well, I mean, we buy real estate. So we buy real estate. It doesn't matter if it's in North Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia, a deal's a deal. So, I'd be happy if you'd like to give you a letter of intent and present you with an offer to buy everything you're willing to sell. We'd obviously have to figure out the details. We'd have to figure out the numbers. I'm happy to fly to you. I can have you fly to me. It doesn't really matter, but I'd want to meet you face to face and see if we could put a deal together. But while we're on the phone, let's get this first deal wrapped up in North Carolina. Because listen,
Right.
I'll agree to your price. So why don't I just send you an agreement on the price right now, and then give me 5 days to figure out the terms for it. If you're
I
not,
like that. Yeah.
if you're not
That's pretty
happy,
much.
if you're not happy within the 5 days of the terms that I present you, or we can't come to an agreement, what's the worst case scenario? You lost the weekend. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But best case scenario is I'm able to get you exactly what you want, and I'm able to structure it so that it's a win-win for you and me. Because my goal out of all this is to get you down to the Turks and Caicos and not worrying about any of those headaches anymore. And your goal seems to be willing to sell the property. Your goal seems to be to sell the property and feel like you have one less burden on your plate. So why don't we see if I can just send you an agreement of sale, and right in that agreement, it's going to say there's an inspection period. Right behind the inspection period, it's going to say that I have, 5 days to present you with amiable terms that you're willing to agree to. And I will lay out exactly how it would be structured. Even if you need me to have like a sample note written up so that you can see that, everything is above board and by the book. you could easily get a real estate attorney to draft you a sub-2 contract and make it look legit on like legal letterhead, for probably $150 to send her, something like that.
Right.
Or you can, have Chat GPT do it for you. But
Right. I have Paces. I have all Paces contracts, so they're pretty legit.
The end
Yeah,
of the day,
that's kind of that's pretty much how it ended. She was like, just give me both offers. What would you give me for cash? What would you give me if we do these term things? Because I mean, I was like, here, let me explain it to you. I was like, now you explain it back to me. So she's like, okay. Because she's like, I'm a hairdresser. I don't understand this shit. I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna tell you this is how it is. Then I want you to explain it back to me, and it'll make you understand it better. And after she did that, she's like, oh shit, okay. And her son went to the same college as me, and I know that area very, very well. So that she just started rambling for about 30 minutes. But
the other thing to
so
remember,
with
the other thing to remember on there also is, when somebody presents it as in, look, you just give me your offer. The way I usually handle it, especially once I've had rapport built with the person, is I'm like, can I ask you a silly question? And I know you're going to think I'm nuts for this, but have you ever bought a car before? And they're like, yeah. And I say, do you walk into the lot and tell them how much you're willing to pay them? Or do they normally have a price on the window?
Mhm.
Well, there's a price on the window. Well, because the reason I ask you is my job is to buy real estate. And part of my job is obviously I want to try and buy it for as cheap as I can. But I could sit here and send you letter after letter or offer after offer. But you and I both know that you have a number in your mind. You have the number in your mind that you want to get, and you have the number in your mind that you would take. So let's just be honest with each other, because I've loved talking to you so far. I've loved hearing about the islands and the different properties you have, but you and I both know that there's a number that you're willing to take. So if I was willing to buy the property cash, not have to have any realtors involved, not having to pay any commissions, and I even handle all the closing costs and expenses, what's the best you could do for me on this so we can get it wrapped up right now?
Right.
A lot of times you'll find they'll give you a 10 to 20% discount just from asking something like that.
Mhm. Well, I know like the highest offer she's gotten is 385. She would be like, would like 425. I'm like, well, that we could go to 425 as long as we can create terms.
Did you ask her why she didn't take
And
the
so I take
385?
she goes, because I know what it's worth. And, if I held on to this, she goes, I don't. I wanted it for my kids, and my kids don't give a shit about the mountains anymore. And she goes, I just don't want the headache of it. She goes, I don't rent it out. It just sits there. So, that was in 425. I mean, it's just hard to pull comps in that area because I know the area well.
So,
But
so use the,
I mean, even Bovado has it at 700,000. I mean, those houses up there, like I think she's undervaluing it, to be honest with you.
that's okay. Let her
Oh, I
undervalue
agree
it.
100%. Like I didn't tell her that, but
But here's the other thing I would say is you could always play on the emotion part of it. You bought this for your kids. You know what I mean? How old is she?
she's probably mid 50s.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to set it up on a 50-year term so that for the next 50 years, long after you're dead and gone and buried somewhere in the islands, your kids are going to still get the great benefit of knowing every month mom's getting them mailbox money. So why don't
Right.
we set it up for a 50-year term? On a 50-year term, gosh, I could even give you, probably an extra $20,000 over what you're asking for it. What do you care? You know what I mean? It's all imaginary money at that point.
Right.
And
Like that.
from doing that, I literally did a deal one time with a person where I did it was an 85-year contract. And it was set up to where it was 85 years passed down from generation to generation, whoever, the next generation dictates it to. And it wasn't much money. It was like $225 a month, or, it could be paid off in any time. We ended up holding the property for 2 years, sold it, and paid the guy off. But that was literally how I closed that guy. Was, look, man, you originally bought this farmette to have a homestead for you and your family. I understand the kids didn't want to go the same path that you and your wife had envisioned for them. There's nothing wrong with that. but I'm not asking you to just part ways with the property and just lose your shirt on it or anything. So why not let me take over the property for you? I'll buy it. I'm going to, rent the farmland out. I'm going to rent out the house to somebody else probably, unless I find a farmer that wants it all. It's my complete headache. But the great thing is, every single month, you, your wife, your kids, their wives, maybe even the great grandkids are going to get to go out to dinner, grab a few tanks of gas. And every single time that it happens, you're going to think, man, I can't believe I sold that property 35 years ago and we're still getting a check for it. How great would that be? It's like a bonus retirement for you.
Mm-hmm.
And he got sold on it, and
Right.
I was able to get a $300,000 loan from the guy at 2.3% for 85 years, with no money down out of pocket.
Yeah. I'm going to go higher and just do no interest at all. And I like that idea and be like, hey, let's just set up a Roth IRA for your kids and throw this in that Roth IRA for them.
Yeah. Whatever, however you want to
Yeah,
do
about
it.
the same way. Yeah. That's a
A
good
family, listen, every month the payment's going to get put into a family trust. You're going to decide who the beneficiaries of that trust are. You're going to decide the draws on the trust. Maybe in the course of 15, 20 years, that trust will be up, $200,000-$300,000 with good investments. And that'll become your family's legacy. That'll be the college fund that your family's able to draw on for the next, 30, 40, 50 years, maybe the next 5, 6 generations. But, and play on her savviness, the fact that she's a real estate investor. You wouldn't own all these properties if you weren't interested in building generational wealth. All I'm trying to do is offer you a vehicle that already matches with your priorities.
Right. Okay. I like that. That was quick. That was a good off the top of your head.
Beast mode.
Beast mode.
I do my best thinking when I'm just sitting there talking to myself, man, to be honest with
Right. Yeah.
But-
I love it. Because this
All
could
right,
be one.
guys.
I wouldn't even. All right. Yeah. Jesse, I might holler at you later.
you. All right, brother.
right.
Yeah, man,
All right.
listen, you can always look me up on social media. My name's Jesse Bush on Facebook and Jesse B Sales Pro on Instagram. Just shoot me a DM if you have anything I can help you with, man.
All right. Sounds good. Appreciate you.
All
See
right.
you guys. I'm going to give that chick Nicole a call right now, Esteban.
All right. Take
All right,
care.
brother.
Yeah.
Later.